You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call. I'm joined by Brad Hunt, and today our guest is Samong Yang. Samong has been running a YouTube channel that I've been a fan of for a while now. I wanted to meet him, talk to him, interview him. I really like his authentic, really clean video editing. I like his hunt films. I like the genuineness of the show and the authenticity that he brings to the table. I think he does a great job of creating a clean edit where it's easy to see the footage and the sound is good. I just really like the work he's doing, and I wanted to give him a platform to talk about it and introduce him to my audience, which I think could greatly appreciate the content he's producing.
Absolutely.
So the show is called Samong Outdoors. Check him out on YouTube. I think you're going to enjoy the show. Right now, we have two big giveaways going on. If you buy a hat or a shirt at the Gritty store, you're entered to win a backcountry hiking package, which includes an initial ascent backpack, a pair of crispy boots of your choice, a pair of sheep feet orthotics, peaks, trekking poles, gaiters, and a headlamp. All the things you need to get on a backcountry hike. And every time you purchase, every $1 you spend over every $10 you spend over at the Gritty store gets you an entry. And you have between now and Sunday, this coming Sunday, March 12th at midnight to get entered. If you shop before then, you're entered to win. And right now you can also win a hunting package from Stealthy Hunter, because Ryan Lampers and Hillary Lampers have put together a hunt package for you over there. So every
$10 spent gives you one entry.
Go to stealthyhunter.com and buy yourself a glassing pad, a rifle cover, or any of the supplements that they have. And every $10 you spend over there will get you entered to win. Again, that giveaway ends on March 12th at midnight as well. So you have between now and Sunday at midnight to get in on both giveaways. And every time you purchase at both, you're really helping us continue to do the show and helping Ryan and Hillary continue to produce the great products that they're producing. So we really appreciate your support. Can't thank you enough. We wouldn't be here without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's get on with the show. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call, and I'm joined today by two gentlemen that I've been following, stalking on YouTube for a while. And I really feel like Samong Outdoors is your YouTube channel.
Correct.
What's your full name then?
Samong Yang.
Samong Yang.
Yep.
And then we've got Nate or Nathaniel.
If you want to be proper, yeah.
And your last name?
Cutshall.
Cutshall?
Cutshall.
Cutshall. Okay. So I've been following you on YouTube. I've watched your hunting channel quite a bit, and I've even gone out of my way. Like, we have a little locals community that's our it's kind of a little private community, and I've shared a bunch of your videos over there and asking people, like, what's your favorite hunt shows that you're watching on YouTube? And your show comes up quite a bit. So I've been a fan on the sidelines, kind of watching your content, and I watch a lot of hunting content because I'm just trying to figure out what's out there. But I'm also just because I'm a hunter, and I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So as I've been watching you, at first you're kind of like this sleeper channel for me, just out there on the side, and you have a few thousand views, and I'm watching, I'm like, hey, this is pretty good stuff. And then continue to develop, and throughout the years now, I've seen some really cool hunts that you've put out. Your elk one, I mean, congratulations.
Thank you.
So I want to get into a little more of that, get to know you guys a little bit. For those that are listening, you really want to check out Samong's YouTube channel. I think his hunt shows are great, and we'll get into why I think that's the case and get your opinion on hunt shows as well, and kind of get into that a little bit more. So to kick this off, let's start with you, Samong. Where are you from? What's your story?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Spokane, Washington. But my parents, they're originally from Laos. They they're refugees, and they somehow, out of all the places that they could have chosen the U.S., they landed in Spokane, Washington. So I was born there, 10, 12 years after they first got to Spokane.
Okay.
And so I grew up, and my backstory when it comes to hunting and just fishing in general, it actually goes back to just our culture in general. Laos is a very poor country. It's a third world country, and so naturally to survive over there, you were either a farmer, if you were rich, you raised farm animals, but most people weren't rich enough to raise farm animals, so in order to eat, you would hunt or you would fish. Yep. And so the culture itself is it's really, I don't know, hunting is just a big part of it.
It's how you sustain yourself in
exactly.
a country like that where there's not a lot of money to just go buy stuff at the grocery store.
Yep.
You got to go find it.
Exactly.
A lot of fishing.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, long story short, when they came over to the U.S., hunting is not something that just leaves you.
Yeah.
It's just kind of who you are. And so when my parents and my uncles and they all came here, naturally they just wanted to go hunt and fish. Because even though they came here, you're still pretty poor. You're going to a brand new country. You don't even know the language.
Look at the public land.
Crazy.
Opportunities.
Exactly.
Right?
It's amazing.
If you've come from a third world country, you also know that it's all private. It's what's there's already been taken up. Mm-hmm. And so when it blows my mind what we have here that we totally take for granted in the form of public land. We're all wealthy. We won the lottery, man, being in the United States.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's something that growing up, I'm used to public land, but then I never really realized how lucky I was until you start exposing yourself to even just the Midwest or the eastern part of the country where it's a lot of places are just private property.
Right.
And so back to the story, it's just when my dad came over here, he's just always hunted. And so when I was born, I was just automatically part of hunting and fishing. So that's really why I'm doing what I'm doing today, which I'm very lucky to say that. And, so for me, hunting has always been a thing. And when I started filming stuff like that, it wasn't really any too different. All I was doing now was I was just filming it.
Yeah.
Granted, when I first started, it was I go back and watch it, and I'm what am I doing? I have no idea what I was doing. But it's just that passion. It's even though it wasn't any good, I just really enjoyed doing it. And when I first started, I didn't have a vision of doing this as my full-time job. And it was just I really just enjoyed going out there filming whatever I was doing, hunting or fishing. And I come home and I just produce it. And so I never had a professional teacher. I never went to class for this. This was really just all self-taught. And so it took me a lot of years to just finally get to where I am. So when I look at me starting to where I am now, it's a very slow and gradual process. Mm-hmm. But I've actually really learned to appreciate that because it really shows how much work that actually goes into here versus just going to a class, learning all the shortcuts, if you will, and just going to be a professional producer. And so I've really taken my steps, baby steps, if you will. And it's basically led me to the point where I'm sitting next to Brian Call on his podcast.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, and we'll get into more of your film technique, kind of what skills you've brought to the table. A lot of times, in my opinion, people are focused on the right equipment and fancy gizmos and all this and that, and so much more of the hunt is actually the story. But not just the story, it's doing something special too. So it's a combination. And special can be different depending on where you're at in your journey, right? So when you killed that 6x6 bull stud, that's kind of a first
big bull.
This is a nice bull.
Yeah.
In Washington.
Yeah. Nobody thinks about Washington.
So it's kind of a unicorn type critter.
Yep.
You found the impossible, and then you got the impossible, and then you were kind of the raw emotion, the realness of it is you're experiencing, and you're I can't believe this happened, right? And for someone like Ryan Lampers, who's killed I don't know, 30 bulls like that, 40, maybe more. For him, it's not that bull is kind of one of the many. It's good, but he won't have that emotion because that emotion was 30, 40 years ago when he first did it, right? Yeah. What I'm saying is I can value what you just did through your eyes based on your experience level. and where you're at in your hunting journey. And it's just refreshing because it's real and authentic. And so anyway, I want to get into that a little bit, but Nate, let's get your story.
Yeah.
Cutshall? How do you spell that?
Cutshall.
Okay.
It kind of came from German. It used to be Cutshall.
Okay.
And then it's morphed over the years into Cutshall as we've been Americanized. So I grew up not quite the origin story of Samong, with it being as part of the culture, but more as grew up family hunting. Mostly grew up with small game and turkey, and grew up kind of in the western northern area of Washington. Moved over here for college and all that kind of stuff, and ended up getting more into the big game in that aspect in the backcountry, and meeting Samong, hunt together a lot, and I don't do it full time. I'm an IECU nurse by night, and
is Samong full time at this point?
So Samong is full time.
I am full time at this point.
Oh wow!
So I got into the photography pretty early back in high school, and I was not doing it in the hunting aspect. I was doing it more in the landscape, kind of alpine backpacking aspect. And that's kind of what I built social media and my business around at that time. I kind of always went in with preaching the idea of it's not about the gear. Yeah. Because I'm sure a lot of people, their first question is, well, what camera do you use?
Yeah.
And so I shot with just, a Costco packaged Canon T6i for a long time. And
yeah, me too.
I was able to kind of build a little bit of a business around that, and kind of went waylay went through college, and was able to pick it back more up in the hunting outdoors aspect, and be able to introduce Samong a little bit to the photography aspect and do some of that when we would hunt together. And
how did you meet?
Kind of met through a mutual friend, buddy Steve of ours, on a spring turkey hunt. We went on 1-2-day spring turkey trip together, and then 2 weeks later we were planning a 7-day high country hunt together. Kind of just clicked, and yeah,
really,
yeah. Now it happened fast, man. There's not a lot of friendships that just start like that, but this one did.
Yeah, kind of get that chance to hunt together, and you meet somebody where you see an animal that's 3.5 miles away, and it's about going to be 11 hours to get to. Yeah. And you meet someone that it's not a question in their mind.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not someone that you get to meet every day.
You guys were on some stud whitetails too.
We were.
Yeah.
I was disappointed on how that one turned out. Yeah. I'm just going to say, but we can't win them all.
Yeah. No.
But that was like, where do you find bucks like that in that kind of country? Like,
so that's the thing about Washington. So Washington's pretty under the radar when it comes to Western hunting. Yeah. For a good reason. Well, I guess in this case, for bad reason.
There, yeah.
So Ryan Lampers knows every bit of Washington better than I do. But when it comes to Washington, I think our whitetail hunting is actually pretty underrated. Like, we actually have pretty good whitetail hunting. I can't vouch for elk hunting, but whitetails for sure. Yeah.
I was impressed.
Yeah, they were.
I was impressed with you. And you guys got right there. We knew it was close. And that darn buck, the bigger one.
Yeah. Yeah. He disappeared.
Where'd he go?
We don't know.
It's funny because yesterday when we were sitting in the Airbnb, we were watching that video.
Yeah.
He didn't want to watch it. But we still have no idea what happened in that 4-point.
So we had spotted them like 950 yards, couple canyons over, couple peaks and valleys, and we had been chasing a buck that we were calling Mini Houdini because he was a young buck and not that big, but he'd given us the slip like a smart buck a couple times.
Yeah.
And so that's where we were sitting glassing for, and I was locked on this one face looking for those, and Samong decided to kind of look up and around and spotted those guys. And at that point, you saw they were hanging out together. There's the big 4x4 and then the nice size 5x5. And by the time we got over there and closed the distance, there was a nice wooded kind of draw that we think he might have slipped back into.
Yeah.
We never laid eyes on him again, but it's a cool experience to see those things in the wild.
Let me just say this. I've been watching your content for 3 years, I think. And at first I just came across it and I was like, oh, I like the style. there's elements of this I can relate to, and I found it wasn't pretentious, it wasn't overproduced, it's just my style, and it was clean, it wasn't too shaky, it wasn't a lot of talking head. It was efficient in its delivery. I sit there and I go, look, when I sit down and watch a hunt show, any show, I have a lot of things to do. I'm busy, I got a lot of goals, I'm shooting like things to do. But when I sit down and I want to watch something because I want to just take a break and I want to see a hunt. I want to feel like I was there because I couldn't go, and so here I just want to experience it through someone else's experience. So I strap in and I get ready and I sit down and I watch a show. I don't want the film to waste my time. Like I don't want to sit there and be like, I don't want to hear redundant information. I want it to be efficient. I want it to be clean. I want to know what's going on. I want to know where you're headed. And I still want the drama and the suspense, and I want the pacing to feel like I'm there, but not the pacing so slow that I'm as bored as you guys were when you sat there for 4 hours waiting for something to happen. Like, you want to deliver that feeling of it took a long time, but you actually don't want the viewer to have to sit there and suffer through it too.
Yeah.
So there's a balance to be struck. And I feel like, you've done a good job with that. So what is it when you make a film? Like, what are your goals? Like, how do you keep it that way? How have you achieved it? Because I'll tell you, I watch a lot of shows, and most of them I fast forward or I skip. And yours, I haven't. And it's not like your films are like 4K masterpieces, right? Mm-mm. Yet they scratch that itch for me. Mm-hmm. So what is it?
I think that just has to do with, like I was saying earlier, like having to take every single step by yourself, not really have a teacher. You really learn to weed out what's good and what's not. I mean, this is not my first rodeo. Like, I basically started filming like back in 2011, right? I mean, obviously that what I do now is way different than what I did back then. But every single year, it's even like just now, I would go back, watch my videos from last year, and I would just nitpick it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I could have done this better, or I could have changed that.
Thing.
Yeah, and so it's like, it's really trial and error. That's all it really is, right? And with YouTube nowadays, like the studio, the analytics is so advanced. You see where people are clicking off the video, where people are watching the video, which part they're replaying the most. And so it's like, I don't think I realize how much effort I put into learning that. But then when you sit down and talk about it, it's like, yeah, I actually spend a lot of time looking at that stuff. But to answer your question, like how do I do that? It really just goes down to, I put myself, when I'm editing, I just put myself in someone's shoes where they literally have never seen the hunt, right? Because it's easy for us people, when you're out there, you're filming, you understand what's going on in the hunt. It's the idea of how can you make someone who has no idea what happened understand the storyline without making them bored.
Yeah, I say that all the time. Context is king.
Exactly.
And so too often they were there, they're editing, they were there, they were at the show, they were at the hunt, the person editing it, and they take for granted all these elements that people I think it's a skill to be able to say, to be able to put yourself in the shoe of someone who has no idea what's going on and make sure you deliver the content in that way. It shocks me, as I've worked with a lot of different editors, how much they just sort of assume the storyline. And I'm like, what? No, you left out, like, that's why I use so many graphics myself. Like, and I'm trying to give as much context to the situation as possible, so you know which way the wind is blowing, where we're cliffed out, where the deer is, what we're hoping the deer is going to do, where we're headed to get in position, how many yards it will be if we get there in the right way. Like, all that stuff, so much for me, I rely heavily on sort of those graphics to sort of help me tell that story, or good audio and explanations along with cutaways and imagery, Mm-hmm. But it takes a skill to be able to look at it from the eyes of someone who has no idea what's going on.
Exactly. And I think that's probably the biggest factor when it comes to just making sure that my story flows, because I mean, once you put yourself in the mindset of someone who's never watched it, it's, in my opinion, it's a lot easier to just follow along. And like I said, I think you beat this as a dead horse now. It's just like, just tell the story. You know, like don't overthink it. Like, you're just tell the story, you know?
So tell me this. Why didn't you add the, like, Jaws music, dunna, 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 you know, and all the music as you go on the stock and you close the distance and you're about to shoot it, and the hype and the hype and the hype, and then you pull the trigger. Like, where's that? I don't see it in any of Samong stuff.
Yeah, so why didn't I do that? Because I wasn't listening to Jaws music when I was making that hike.
Then you couldn't hear us breathing heavy and dying.
Like, that's basically it.
Isn't it strange to you how many hunt shows do that?
Oh, yeah. Like, a lot.
I never liked it from day one. I always say this all the time. If you use a lot of music for your stalks and your hikes and all that in a hunt film, it's because you're not a very good filmmaker. That's not necessarily true, because there are a few shows that are use heavy music, and I actually really like them. Mm-hmm. They're rare, though. It's like somehow they picked the coolest music and they integrated it so well that I don't even kind of notice the music. But most of the time, it's like I said, it's like the Jaws theme with, it's so garish and fake.
I think it has to do with the idea of people who just throw it on there for the sake of throwing it on there because they think their footage is boring, and people who have a context as to why they add music. Like, I'll add music. Yeah, to my films here and there.
Yeah, me too.
But the context of it has to make sense why there's music there. It's not just going to be like, oh, I'm just going to throw this on there just because it seems like there's nothing going on. Yeah. If I have to throw music on there because I feel like the film is boring, then there's a good chance that part of the film doesn't need to be included in the film.
Exactly. Yeah. I like to throw a highlight reel at the start of each film, just because I do like a 4 or 5 part series usually of a hunt. And I'm like, well, episode 1 is only going to give you a taste of part of it, but stick around, because this, like, the teaser is that piece that says this is what you can expect over the course of this 4-part series I'm putting out. So it gives you that, and it's also like a hype reel to say, get excited, this is cool, this is going to be fun, you know, this is what you can look forward to. And it's just sort of a bumper reel at the beginning, and I like to do that, and my audience seems to looks forward to that. After that, like, I don't really want to run too much music, because the sound of nature is what I want you to feel. I want you to feel like you're out hunting, and I want you to feel like it's real. Mm-hmm. But then at the end, I'll often use music to sort of recap what you just saw and to close out that day or something like that. Sometimes I'll use music in a hiking sequence or something when I have a lot of shots I want to display, and that would leave you with a lot of, I could either cut it out or keep it in, but you need a little something to push it in. And my rule with music is I only put music in that I would listen to in my truck, I would choose to listen to whether it was in a movie or not. Like, if it's cool music, then in itself it has inherent value, whether it's in my film or not in my film. And so to add the two together only increases the film's value. But I'm pretty selective about all of that and careful, and I try to just not use it much at all.
You don't drive around to the Jaws theme song normally on your daily basis.
And I feel like music taps into your emotions.
Absolutely.
Right? Like sad music, angry music. There's a reason AC/DC gets me pumped at the gym, you know. There's a reason that other music is all emotional, makes, you know, it that's why they use it in Hollywood films, right? Music is powerful. And I feel like you can use music to build that suspense, drama, and excitement just before a shot. And you can certainly get people like pumped up and they don't even realize that the music is working on them. But I feel like it's cheating. And I feel like too many hunt shows are reliant on it as well. They don't capture the audio because they know the whole time they're just going to play music and over-the-shoulder shots and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I want to feel like I was there. and the music is a way of brushing through it and tapping into emotion without actually providing the content that that I just feel like it's not as authentic and real.
Yeah, I just feel like this is why I always tell. I mean, I'm not a professional, but I just always tell people like they just want to overlay music. I'm like, music is really good when you know how to use it, but it really makes or breaks your video. You don't know how to use music, like your video falls apart.
Well, I love the Hunting Public. I watch a ton of their stuff. And the thing I like about their stuff from day one is it rarely had any music in it. And they do and still do use quite a bit of graphics, which I also appreciate. I don't even hunt turkeys. Do you know how many turkey shows? I don't even care to hunt a turkey. But I watch their films because I like strategy. I like looking at how they did it. It wouldn't matter if it was a turkey, a bear, mountain lion. Like, you're showing me how you hunted an animal, given its senses, and its, turkeys don't have a sense of smell. They have vision, right? And they can hear. And so I'm watching you like work this thing, and I find it educational, interesting, entertaining, and I don't even turkey hunt. So when I'm sitting here watching turkey hunt after turkey hunt, and I don't even care about turkeys and I don't hunt them, that tells me, like, as a hunter, they're tapping into something in their production that connects with me as a hunter. That's universal. It doesn't have to do with the species. It has to do with just the aspect of hunting, like human being against critter, cat and mouse. And when I realized, too, that they weren't using music, I was watching it going, man, why do I like this so much? And there are certain elements now that I believe are so critical to a story, a hunt story, that I feel like they just kind of hit on, and it just felt real. And one of the things I can't stand is over-dramatized hunt shows. Like, I don't want to hear about how your mom died and your grandma and how much this hunt means to you because, like, it's okay, but like, every show is life-changing. Like, come on, you went on a hunt, dude. Like, and you shot a deer.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just let me go on the hunt. Like, I don't need the life-changing story.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why it would click so much, because like that's typically what I've learned to do is just tell the story. Like that's what it boils down to, right? Just tell the story, man. Like,
yeah,
you don't need to. I think what people tend to fail to realize is sometimes, like, even if you're just filming yourself walking, that's actually entertaining in itself.
Yeah,
you don't need to throw music on top of that stuff. Like a lot of the shots you film, like of Ryan just walking on a stalking in, it's like, I don't even realize what I'm watching, but then it's just like he's just walking, but then you're so in tune with it.
Yep.
But then a lot of that has to do with the context of what you've already told before. Like, you guys spotted a bear, you're showing all the context. That's why it makes sense why that's entertaining. Versus if it's just a random cutscene of a dude walking, that's a little different.
Yes.
Plus, you have the opportunity for it to kind of morph in the age of YouTube. Kind of where it started, hunting TV and stuff. A lot of those shows were kind of built around a form, right? Like, you got the 30 minutes, you got like 22 minutes, with commercials, and so you're doing your cinematic, big film crew, music, beautiful kill shot of a really nice animal usually, and that was kind of, you turn on the hunting TV and that's what you expect. But YouTube's kind of allowed for these longer format ability to tell the story.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
Like right now with the show's growth, the channel's growth, how many subscribers do you guys have on YouTube now?
I think we're just like right over 61,000.
Yeah, it took me forever to get that far. Forever. I mostly did a podcast, though. I didn't do films consistently, and I just threw out a film or two a year. And I didn't try to build a YouTube show, really. It was more the podcast, and the films were like a side gig. But then it sort of switched, So 61,000, and then what's the feedback been?
Really supportive. I'm actually to the point where I'm not doing enough for the fans. He's rocking one of my first ever hats, and people have been like just grilling me, like, dude, like, when are you coming out with hats? When are you coming out with shirts? Like you got to do more than just producing. I'm like, dude, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But then that's the thing, like, a lot of this stuff, like, I'm figuring out on my own. And, like, I tell people, it's like, yeah, like, that stuff I'm working on in this background, but, like, my focus has always just been these things, right? Like videos. Like, I don't want to lose my focus of why I started this stuff.
Well, it's such a big job to come out with apparel and other types of things that it's not that easy to do.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're creative and you're doing this film stuff and you're doing the hunts, and that's all full-time gig. And then you want to run a business too and bring apparel to market and build a shop and sell. Like, it's a lot.
But I'm very grateful for it, though. You know, it just means that the brand is growing, which I'm very grateful for. But, yeah, overall, the feedback, just to answer your question, it's been relatively positive. Like, I'd say, like, 99% has been positive.
Yeah. What has been your most popular films so far that have had the most views, most response, most
It's funny because
engagement?
it's my fishing videos.
Really?
Yeah. But, I mean, I think that just has to do with the market itself. Like, fishing is just a much bigger market than hunting.
Huh.
Hunting is a very small market.
I haven't watched a single one of your fishing videos.
I wouldn't expect you to.
Yeah.
But, yeah, my fishing videos are usually the ones that do the best. But then the other ones that usually do better in terms of hunting is obviously when I shoot something like my bull last year.
Yeah.
Or just like a high country deer hunt where you're like in there for like 7 days.
Yeah.
Those are typically what do the best for me.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I'll say most of the time if I meet somebody, someone stops and whether it's Samong and I are hunting together or we're out doing whatever, they'll say, "Oh, he's the guy that fishes." I'll be like, "Yeah." And and they'll ask, we'll be talking, and I'll mention hunting, and most of the time it's, "Oh, he hunts?"
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It is interesting to watch. It's interesting to watch your family dynamic too. You can tell like you're like a first generation. Your family's immigrants, and then you have uncles and this whole extended group of family who really appreciates the outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they come from a totally different culture. Like
Yep.
in the background, I was over here looking up, Laos, country in Asia. And I'm thinking, okay, what are we dealing with here? It says that Southeast Asia country traversed by the Mekong River and known for mountainous terrain, French colonial architecture. The language is
Hmong. Hmong, but the H is silent. So it's just Mong, Hmong.
Mong, Hmong, Hmong.
Yep.
What is that? Is that sort of
It's just its own
derivative of?
No, it's actually its own little thing.
Really?
Yeah.
It's kind of a nomadic thing,
Yeah,
right?
it's a nomadic. So technically, Hmong people, we don't have our own country. We're just spread all over Asia. You'll find Hmong in Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia, and China, and U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just everywhere.
So, because I went to Japan, I was a missionary in Japan when I was 19, and learned Japanese, and we had a lot of Chinese and Koreans and stuff in Japan and all of that, and I had some friends who actually went to Laos. It's a small place.
Tiny.
And I haven't really thought of it in terms of the language spoken there or any of that kind of stuff. It's not based on Tagalog or like Filipino,
No.
Thailand,
It's just its
Korean.
own thing.
It's just its own thing.
Yeah.
So what's the language look like?
It's a very simple language.
Yeah.
When you talk, if we had a dictionary,
Yeah.
ours would probably be like 1/100th of what the English dictionary is.
Really?
It's a very simple language. Like you have one word that can mean 5 different things depending on the context of what you're using it as. And
Really?
yeah, and a lot of words are very similar. For example, right? If I say day, that's water. If I say day, that's dog.
Let's do it again.
Day is water. Day is dog.
See, in Japanese, they use a lot of the same thing. Like you'll have 4 words that are all said the same way, and by context, you know what they're saying because the sounds their alphabet makes, their language makes, is actually quite limited, and they ran out of new ones. It seems like so they reuse stuff constantly. So that was strange to me. Also, the number of sounds that are that we use in English that were never part of the Japanese vocabulary at all. Like, they just don't make that sound at all.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few on the Japanese side that we don't make, especially like rolling your R's and stuff like that. That's not an English thing. So your family moved from there. What brought them here?
It was the Vietnam War.
Really?
So they're refugees, right? They had no choice but to escape, right? So it happened. I forgot what year it was, but it's basically during the Indochina Wars where Vietnam was basically overtaking Laos. They just came. I mean, like I said, Laos is a very poor country. We didn't have an army, so basically, if somebody wanted to take over Laos, like, you're not fighting against an army.
Yep.
And so basically, all they had to do is every time Vietnamese came and invaded a town, like, you would just have to run. And so eventually, my parents, they fled over, crossed the Mekong River over to Thailand, and then from there, that's when they were trying to figure out where people were going to go. So some people went to France, some people went to Australia, people went to U.S., some people went to Canada. You just basically wanted to escape the country. So that's what oftentimes my uncles would often refer to as the country just blew up, because we just scattered. Like, so wherever you ended up, that's where you ended up. And like I said, my parents just ended up in Spokane.
So when I hear the family out there, there's quite a few that still speak that don't seem to speak much English. Yep,
because like you said, I'm first generation. So my parents and my uncles, they all had to learn English when they got here, and so I'm to the point where I can see my second generation. I have nephews and nieces now.
Yeah,
they're like all English. You speak Hmong to them, they're looking at you like what are you talking about? And so I'm in that middle ground where I can speak both languages fluently.
Yeah.
Right? So, but then
I hear you on the film a few times speak both languages.
Yep.
And you have a slight accent in your English accent, but just barely, just enough that I know I can tell that you're from Asian descent of some kind.
Yep. And so, yeah, the only time I really speak Hmong is to my uncles who don't really speak English. The reason why I don't speak on film is because I hate putting subtitles on my films. That takes the most time out of all my editing. I'm like, I'm not going to do that anymore.
It does.
Because I used to do it all the time because that's just how it, you want to keep it raw and real.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I've learned over the years, like, people who watch it, they mainly speak English. So I'm like, dude, like, I don't want to keep having to translate stuff through subtitles. So I'm just going to talk in English.
Yeah.
And in this situations where I am speaking Hmong to, like, my dad or whoever I'm with, I'll just throw in subtitles there.
Yeah. Like when you went and packed out your elk and the whole family was around and all that kind of stuff. That was cool to see the family kind of, rally and all come up there and celebrate and stuff. And to see, you're that in between, again, like that generation where you're fluent in both languages and you're bridging the gap, between the older people and the younger people. And it's really neat to see. I think it's neat to see. I really love to see America be that place where people from all over the world can come and mix their cultures and spend time together
and the work ethic and the overall demeanor.
Yeah,
kind of getting introduced to Samong and his family, kind of that family affair type thing.
Yep.
Is, as an American, it makes me feel so.
I know.
We don't know what we got. We don't know what we got.
I always say this, with my kids. I've spent a lot of time in foreign countries. I've seen what it's like to live outside of the United States. I spent time in India, quite a bit of time in India when I did IT consulting and stuff for years at a time. And I've seen places that are very polluted and poverty-stricken and third world countries. So it bothers me when I hear people in the United States complain or talk about how bad this country is, and I'm thinking to myself, you have no idea how lucky you are and how blessed you are to be here. Like, we just got back from Mexico, Ryan Lampers and myself, Brad. We were down there filming and hunting Coues deer. And we got a little taste of Mexico, crossing the border and going through a couple hours inland with our vehicle driving down. And the people there work so hard, and they're so humble, and they're so thankful that we came. They didn't resent us at all. They were like just thankful that we were there and that we could supply a little bit of income for them and that they could provide some services. They were so eager to work.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Work is a blessing.
Yeah. They just come at it with so much greater appreciation and gratitude. And honestly, that's the thing. Like, I'm so used to being here where people take it all for granted, complain about their life and how hard it is and how oppressed they are and how they're victims of this or victims of that. And I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. Not in the grand scheme of things, not in the grand scheme of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I can only imagine what your family has been through just getting out of that country as a refugee during those years, Vietnam War and so on.
Yeah, even as someone who hears stories all the time, like I've learned to accept the fact that I will never understand the magnitude of what they actually went through.
No.
Like every year at deer camp, we always hear stories of it. It's like you get a glimpse of what they went through, but like you just can't, you won't ever know.
Yeah, my buddy was, he went to, in 94, 93, he went to Cambodia, and he was a missionary there, and he had all these stories from the Khmer Rouge and all the stuff that went on during that time, and Pol Pot, and you're just like, whoa, dude, that's some dark, dark stuff. And, I just think, man, I want my kids to experience that stuff. Like, not that, the tragedies, but I want them to know by visiting other places what America has been able to achieve in terms of the wealth is unbelievable. The comfort, the poorest among us, man, have cell phones and cars and jobs. It's like, you're not that poor.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always tried to portray in my videos. I don't know how well it does, but like I'm always just so thankful to hunt. Especially, like I said, dude, who would have thought I'd be doing this as my full-time job? You know, like that's just like that's out of my world. You know, like
What
crazy.
happened? What happened? Like, how did it go from filming? You know, like when I did it. Okay, I was just like, I'm gonna do a podcast because I want to interview a few people and I think it'd be fun. And you fast forward a year, and it was like companies were coming to me saying, "Hey, your show's pretty popular. Can we pay you to like be sponsors and stuff?" And I'm like, "Well, no." And then they're like, a year later, they're like, "Here's a giant check. Are you sure you don't want to be paid?" And I'm like, "Hey, babe, actually, I could quit my job and probably make almost the same amount of money. What do you think?" She's like, "Do it." It's definitely not been as consistent. It took a while to build back the sort of income I left. Mm-hmm. But, man, I have been rich in lifestyle and opportunity, you know. Mm-hmm. So how has it unfolded for you? Like, you didn't set out, I'm assuming, I'm going to put this, you let me know if I'm wrong, but you didn't set out going, oh, I'm going to be a full-time hunt show YouTuber guy.
Never. That was never the intention.
He still doesn't say that.
Yeah, that same thing happened to me. I didn't have any intention of that.
Yeah, like I said, when I first started, it was just like I just really enjoyed it. And like this really all just came with YouTube. You know, over the years you do it, people just start following along. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, the bigger you get, the more publicity you get.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I think I reached like 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. This is like 2019, end of 2019. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna reach out to a company. So I reached out to them. And at first, I just wanted one product for a giveaway. Yeah. But in turn, they sent me an entire contract to sign. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to say no to this. So I signed the contract.
Yeah.
And so from there, like they're one of my biggest partners today. I'm very grateful for them. But it's like baby steps like that, right?
Yep.
Where I wasn't expecting anything out of it. And then in turn, they were like, we just really want to support you.
Yeah.
And so over time, I graduated college in 2020. So when I first started this channel, it was like 2016. So 2016 to 2020, like I was mainly focused on school. And so I was doing this like whenever I could. But then I was very lucky that as I was graduating college, like this was getting to the point where I was like, this could be a potential route that I could take.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I got out of college, instead of getting a job, I was like, I'm just going to take a year off and just like really focus on this. And so that's what I did with that year. And it really jump-started my channel even more to the point where like more businesses were, they were contacting me and stuff like that. And I was like, well, maybe I should take another year doing this. So I did it again, and again, the growth just kept coming in, and it got to a point where I'm just like, dude, like I can do this. Like I can sustain myself. And so that's basically where I am right now.
Dang. So as it's, what are your goals then for, let's say, 2023?
Just continue to do it, man. Like I always tell Nate and Steve, like, I'm going to hunt first, and whatever else comes from it, like, it'll just come.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, as an outsider coming in a couple years ago into Samong, kind of watching the whole thing develop.
Yeah.
Like, he's one of the most humble guys you'll meet, and it tends to, you can tell when people are doing it for the right reason. Right? I was actually thinking about this when you're talking about music.
Yeah.
I also think that correlates. But, like, you do something for the right reason, it will attract people when you're genuine about it.
Right.
And, like, I was talking to Samong just a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about, like, man, if this could happen and this could happen, I could help my dad retire.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, there's not many people that are going to say that, right?
Right.
It's like, I could do this and I could do this. You know, I could do this for myself and this for myself. But it's genuine. It's humble.
Yeah.
You work hard and he does it for the right reason. That's attractive to people.
Absolutely. I would say, like, the response I've gotten from folks when I brought you up and asked questions has been that it's authentic and real. And then I think a lot of times they don't know why they like it. They just watched it and were like, it was good. Like, I enjoyed that. I like that guy. I like those people on that hunt. And one thing that is nice too is, like, a lot of times I'll watch hunt shows, and then I always talk to our guys about the cringe factor. There's always a cringe factor with shows where I'm like, man, they have like 80% of it's there, and then it's 20% cringe. If they could just get rid of the cringe, they'd have something. And it's like, how do they not know how cringy that is? Like, why don't they know that that's cringy? And they don't.
Yeah.
Like, is it instinct? Is it, like, what is it?
That's something I don't know either. I think it's one of those things. If you got it, you got it. If you don't, then you don't.
You can't really teach that eye for producing film. What we do are documentaries. There are actually mini documentary films.
Yeah.
You can go out there with a shot list and a plan, and this is what I'd like to do, and I'd like to showcase this. But really, in a documentary film, you don't know what's going to happen. You know, you're just documenting it. And you're documenting, and you're documenting, and you're on the hunt, and you're documenting, and you're, like, capturing this and that and this and this and that and this and that. Then you get home, and then you're going to put it together. And you don't get to dictate. Like, it wasn't like you pre-shot it. Like, whatever you got, what happened. That's it. Now you got to turn that into something valuable. You got to produce it. And I feel like there's a lot of guys that can edit video, but can't produce video, which is two different skill sets. And just because you know how to chop and blend music and create transitions and color grade and all that, that's not the same thing as producing the film.
Yeah.
Vision, start to finish, a coherent story and a flow, something that people don't want to fast forward through, something that people just sit there and are waiting for it to unfold, that you can keep them interesting without them losing interest halfway or at any point. Like, the pacing has to be right. Like, that's kind of all not taught. That's instinctive a bit.
That's all experience.
Yeah.
I think I'm sure if you went back and watched your films back then, you'd probably be like, yeah, these videos today are way better than that one. It's just experience. You just learn how to make it flow better. You learn how to tell the story better. You learn what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah, I would say I exceeded 10,000 hours of edit time a couple years back. And they say, it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. And I'm like, well, I got way past that, in the edit department, in the production of films. And you said something earlier that crossed my mind is, a lot of times people came along and they'd say, man, Gritty Bowman podcast just blew up overnight. Like, a year and a half, it was just this big show. And it was. But I was like 40. Mm-hmm. I'd been filming stuff since I was in Japan. I've been filming little home videos and, telling stories and using iMovie to do edits. And I was doing stuff for years. And then I was filming all my buddies' hunts for years before I ever tried to, I was toying with film forever and working on it and getting better and better all the time. And I was getting better at business, getting better at a lot of things over the years. So by the time I hit that stage and started doing this, it wasn't like it just happened. It was a culmination of 40-year lifetime that brought me there. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I even grew faster as I went full-time and actually spent so much time behind a computer, learning how to edit. And I'd say now, I'm fairly proficient, but that's because of all those hours behind the camera.
And I think that's one thing that people just don't see. They just see the film, but they don't understand the work. Like some of the things you guys do in your film, I'm like, I would not have taken the time to edit that part. It's just like, because I know how you guys do it. I'm just like, I'm not taking the time to do that.
Yeah. Well, and now it's like, I'm just fast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like to do a film like I do now, like it'll take me 40 hours to do an episode, roughly. To do that before, it would take me 4 to 5 weeks of edit time to do it. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to compete because my goal has always been I wanted to create stuff that was like visually pleasing, audio pleasing, that was really clean and super professional. I follow a lot of shows that don't follow that model, that put out a lot more volume. I'd say the hunting public doesn't try to have the clean edits that I do. But I put out a video. When I start dropping, I do one every Sunday. They do 3 a week, And so you have to sacrifice somewhere. And I was like, for me, what I enjoy doing is a more polished edit, keeping it raw, but also, 4K and stuff. And it takes time. But now I feel like I pushed it for so long that I'm actually fairly efficient at that style. And I can do it pretty quick now. But it wasn't a good way to make money.
Oh, no.
Like, I could have been producing way more content over the years as a YouTuber. But it's not, I didn't chase the money. I chased the end product that I valued, like what fulfilled me. I liked the time I spent learning the edit. I liked the time I spent making the show. And I liked the end result. And I just didn't want to, it's just not me to do it a different way.
Yeah. That's something I struggle with all the time. It's like, do I make this one episode or do I make this 5 episodes? And just like you, oftentimes I just clump into one good video.
Yep.
Like the video where you watch him shoot the bucks. I mean, I could have made that three episodes, but I didn't because I just wanted a good video.
I try to make an episode out of a successful kill harvest. Mm-hmm. And I might make a show 2 episodes, one where we don't get one but we're getting close, and then one where we do. But generally, to me, a hunt and what I want to experience as a hunter is a successful hunt. Not all of them. They don't all have to be that because that's real life. But for the most part, like 90%, 80% of my stuff should be a successful hunt. That's how I kind of view it. And if I were putting out more of like a 50-day vlog of what happened, then it would be different. Yeah. Right? And then you'd just be dropping stuff, giving it raw, and you'd be following along. You as a consumer, an audience member, you just know because of the way it's getting sent that you're going to end up with that kind of show. But for me, again, it goes back to efficiency. As a viewer, I don't want to sit through that. I just want the nuggets, the highlights, the pristine bit and move on, Mm-hmm. So
I think that's why we click, because we think alike. That's just how it is. Tell the story without dragging it out. That's all it is.
What are your favorite hunt channels and stuff?
Yours for sure.
Yeah?
Because a lot of it has to do with the Western aspect of it, right? Like the hunting public, they're whitetail and turkey, which is awesome. I love their stuff. But there's just you're distant in a way.
Yep.
You know, and so when it comes to Western hunting, it's like you're like basically the only one that I actually really sit down and watch. There's like a couple other handfuls. I love Remy Warren, but man, his stuff, I'm just like, man, it's so short. It's like, dude, it's 7 minutes of really high production value, but I'm like, dude, like I don't even know what's going on.
Yep.
You know, and so that's why I feel like ours
it's
are
pretty.
Videos, yeah.
It's pretty. But it doesn't have that slow, authentic pacing that I wanted to have.
Love him though. I love Remy, but sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I could have watched his caribou hunt in like 3 hours.
Yep.
Yeah. Instead of like 20 minutes.
Same here. That's why I prefer a lot of Remy's solo hunter stuff.
Oh, I love the solo hunter stuff.
Because it was slower. I got to just feel like I got one-on-one updates because who else is he going to talk to?
Yeah.
He's by himself. And so I felt like I'm right there with him. That's what I noticed about Solo Hunter Productions with him and Tim. I'm like, one of the reasons I was like trying to figure out, why do I like this? Yeah, they're solo, but why else? Because the film production isn't that good because they don't have a pro cameraman. They're trying to hunt and film at the same time. Well, there's a degree of personal nature to the thing, right? Because they're literally talking to you as if you were there and you're their hunting partner because they got no one else to talk to. And there's a serious one-on-one connection that you develop with a solo hunter in that kind of production that I learned to recognize and value and go, okay, I want to build that in my shows. I want to talk to the audience direct. I want them to know what you do, you know. It's not this 20,000 foot level film with music and everybody's walking around and there's sort of like this lack of discussion about what's happened, right? And you're just supposed to like follow along. I like it when it's just POV and you can just kind of tell me what's up and where you're at.
I think that's how you have to kind of that's an aspect that you see in the longer films too. Because there can't be a 40, 50-minute film of cinematic shots, B-reel with a highlight reel. Like if you're going to draw someone in for almost an hour at their home on their couch, you have to draw them in.
You do. I would say, too, what you've done well is you were really good at getting you've been really good at education. You know, you're like explaining how you're doing it, you know. And sometimes I'm watching it and I'm going, you know, I look at it and I go, and I can tell you haven't hunted as much as I have. I'm like almost 50. I'm 48 and Ryan's 49. And we've been blessed. We're going to get to go some places. So I see, and I'm watching you, and I'm like, you've hunted a lot, like kind of what I did when I first started, but you haven't hunted that much yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I look at it, and I'm like, I love it because I can kind of predict this probably won't end well. But I know that it's where you're at in this journey, and you're just telling the story. You're not pretentious. You're not trying to act like you know it all. You're just like, well, I'm not sure what to do. This is what we're going to do, and we'll see if it works.
Yeah.
And, again, you didn't try to pretend that you're something that you're not. You know, that authenticity and that realness, that humility, that's just appealing, I think, you know.
Yeah, that's why I really enjoy your film because, like I said, I really like learning who I'm watching.
Yeah.
So before I even met you, I felt like I already knew you.
Yeah.
You know, when you walked up, it was just like, hey, it's Brian. You know, it's not like, hey, who are you? You know, like it's just a stranger. That's why I love that stuff. You know, you just learn people like that.
Yeah, I think if you do it right, for sure. On the business side, you know, as people are out there kind of building their own, this is so interesting because, Samong, you've done what so many have tried. You're doing what so many have tried, and they can't. You know, it's interesting too because it's not like if I have complaints, it's about the camera you're using, the edits, the like quality of the microphone, but you're growing that as you grow, right? Mm-hmm. So, and yet it doesn't matter that much to me because I still am enjoying it a lot. But as you continue to grow and get better, all of that will grow with you. Exactly. You know, as you get better and better, and you're like, oh, I'm going to try this microphone now, and I'm going to get rid of this camera, and I'm going to try this camera, I'm going to do this, and it's going to evolve over time. And I can see it has evolved already, right? But But so many people have tried and are trying to do what you're doing. It's just, but you're doing it. What is it that others are not doing? And it's not like your stuff is glitzy and glammy, right?
Yeah. It's raw. It's just very raw. Like I'd say it's pretty low in terms of like production quality.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing fancy about it. And I tell people that all the time. But then they always ask like, why does it work for you? It's like, to me, I think it just comes down to consistency. I think that's the most important thing. And obviously your content itself has to be good. But I think that has to do with just learning over time, because I've noticed the better my quality production gets, the more people are actually watching. Yeah. And so when people first start out, they don't have that experience. They don't have that production quality. And they don't realize people aren't really into it. And so they give up because they don't think they have it. But it's like, dude, it's not a destination, right? It's really a journey that you have to be willing to walk. Yeah. And so that's why all it is, because like most people aren't hiking around hunting with a camera in their hand.
Well, your long-range footage is another thing that's important, and it's good. Like, I can't tell you how many shows I watch where it's like, show me the animal. I want to see the animal. Like, people comment on my stuff a lot. A lot of the comments are around, I feel like I just watched a Mutual of Omaha episode or like the Discovery Channel show on, deer or bears, because I go through the work of capturing animals, doing animal things. And so when you watch it, when you sit down to a gritty film, the star of the show is the animal we're in pursuit of. So the more I can film the animal doing its thing and showcase it, so it's not boring, and it's like, at the end of the day, we all just want to see deer with giant racks walking around while a guy's trying to figure out how he's going to get it, or a big giant bear like walking around, and you're like, oh, he gave us a slip, and you get closer and closer, and you get all these clips of him. They want to see it. They want to see the animal, and I think a lot of shows take that for granted. They're filming it through a little phone scope, and it's a dot, and then when they shoot it, it's a dot, and then they walk up on it, and they barely show it to you. It's like, dude, I don't want to see Samong. I want to see the animal. Like, the animal's the star. And you've done a really good job of that. And you I think a lot of hunt shows are really afraid of, like, either they don't have the camera or the footage, but to blow it up so I can see the freaking thing. Like, instead of it being a dot. Yep. Like, I can see how big the whitetails, the elk is, or whatever, because you actually filmed it.
Exactly.
You can do 80% of the filming of a hunt, too, is easier, right? It's easy to film when you're hiking. It's easy to film when you're sitting there for 9 hours glassing. But then when the animal shows up, the last thing a lot of people want to do is actually pull out the camera and
I think that's
take
huge.
Time to film.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the reasons that you stayed with kind of the production quality is, for him, it's accessible and it's realistic. Yeah. It's realistic for him to keep, a nice camcorder here. Yep. Whereas for you, it's become realistic to pull out, the big lens. Yep. Get the really high quality, close up. But for him, he's, realistic about it, that what I can do and how I can get footage of animals is if I can whip out my camera. Yep. I can stick my phone on the spotting scope, and that's going to get people up to the animal.
And the thing is though, like, as we're using completely different equipment, but it doesn't matter. Like, you got the shot, because, like, we'll see a deer, Brad and I, and be like, oh, look, giant buck, and it's on its way to walk out of view, and we have a plan now to get up above it. I'll take that camera, I'll get it out, and I'll get the last 5 steps as it goes into the bushes. Because I know when I show the film, and Ryan's like, dude, look at that buck. There's a buck right there. I could have just filmed us talking about it and not shown the audience that, and we could have just moved on. But to me, they missed out on the actual excitement of what it was that we experienced. So I make myself film it. Like, every animal encounter that is presented, I'm like, get it on film. I try my hardest to just constantly film the animal. And it's a pain in the butt.
I can attest to that.
I got the film for just 1 second. I put it away, and we run up and get in the next shot. And when I show you the movie, I'm like, Ryan says, "Oh, right there," and then I show you the clip of what he's talking about, and he's like, "Oh, look, it's going around the brush." You see it just like we did. And then we're like, okay, let's go. And we run up to the top. And it only was a glimpse. And it was a clip that was like 5 seconds long. But it meant everything to the audience who's like, oh, I'm excited because I know it. Like, if we just said it, you just have to take our word for it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't go, dude, that's a 7x7 bull that just walked around a corner. You didn't see it. You didn't feel it.
Exactly.
You know? But it's so easy to go, dude, it'll be out by the time I get the camera out, and it often is. I'm still like scrambling, I'm still working on that. I'm still going to try to make it happen.
Yeah, I've messed up so many opportunities doing that. Just trying to get the camera out.
It does cost the hunt sometimes, but I'd say it rarely does anymore for us.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fast and efficient nowadays.
Yeah, most of mine often occurs when I'm like timber hunting, close quarters.
Yeah,
you just step right on an animal.
Well, if you're solo, that's tough. Yeah. That's why for that kind of hunting, I have Brad now, and he's got a 24 to 240 lens, and he's like right over my shoulder, and you get it because you have somebody dedicated to the camera. But I had to get more successful to afford that.
Yeah, that was Samong's pursuit for so long, which was this last year. I don't know, when he shot that mule deer in the timber.
Yeah,
it's so cool, like self-filmed.
Yeah, but that's really just the background of production. Is like there's a lot of sacrifices that go with it that people don't realize.
Yeah,
like that's why sometimes I watch your film, I'm like, how the heck did he get that footage? Because I know there's so much going on. Because a lot of times, like you guys, I know you're not running one camera. No. Anybody can just run with one camera.
Yeah.
I'll run up to 4 cameras, right? I'll set up cameras on me, on the animal and stuff like that. But to me, it's really second nature at this point, right? I've come to the point where I just accept, like, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like, the animal just gets away. But that's something that goes back to why I think it's really worked out for me, is because most people wouldn't sacrifice that. They would just shoot the animal.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, like, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, that you do. But I'm just, like, that's not me. And I think that's why it really just helps you stand out above the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be a priority, right? But it works. I think patience teaches you patience. With a camera in your hand trying to film it, it's rough, but it makes all the difference. I would say, so one of the questions I have for you is, okay, so the channel has grown. It's got a little bit, it's getting there. And you've reached out to partners. What is it that partners are looking for? And what's the revenue model that because I've focused quite heavily on like commission-based. Like I say, use this code and I get paid. Mm-hmm. You don't use this code, I don't get paid. It helps me. You get a discount, helps everybody. I've gone to companies and said, look, I don't want a sponsorship. I don't want to be beholden to a contract. I just want a code. When I sell stuff, you write me a check. If I don't, you don't write me anything. That has really allowed me to remain super authentic in what I talk about in gear and what I promote, because I can sell the stuff I like from Mountain Ops. I like Ignite, Pink Lemonade, especially if you're listening. That's when go use the code GRITTY at Mountain Ops. I can plug that, and I can also say, go get the CBD oil at Stealthy Nutrition. And I also like their sleep gummies, right? Like, those are things I genuinely use and love from both companies. And I can say, use the code GRITTY at Stealthy. They get a discount. I get paid a little tiny sliver of that. And I'm able to promote 2 supplement companies at the same time that have some conflicts with each other, but are like, you sell so much stuff, who cares? Mm-hmm. In the past, when I was more early on, it was harder for me to take what I was producing and generate, a sustainable revenue stream from it. So how has that been for you?
Yeah. So this year, my first partner, I signed a pretty big jump. I'm actually on a contract with them. But a lot of the other companies that I do work with, a lot of times what I do with my first year, if I'm working with a company, is I don't sign a contract. It's just here's a product, use it, and test it out.
Yep.
So I'm actually that's why it takes me so long to quote unquote rack up sponsors, because I want to make sure I actually like it before I even commit to it, right?
Right.
And so, like you said, aside from contracts, a lot of it is commission based as well. Like I said, I'm not tied down to that specific company. It's just if you sell this, we pay you a little bit of money like that. And the other one is just YouTube ad revenue. Like that's a pretty big chunk of my ad revenue right there too. And so it's not like you're making money. If you're planning to do YouTube to get rich, like this is not the way to go.
I don't make jack from YouTube. I don't make jack. I think for me, first of all, I'll throw whatever music I want in there. And so if I do throw in like a song from like Led Zeppelin or something, there's no way I can get the rights to that. But YouTube keeps the money. But I'm tripping over dollars to get pennies when I try to get paid from YouTube ad revenue.
Yep.
I also think, I think I've talked to others like Hush and I've gone over their numbers and my numbers, and I swear to you, like, it's weird. It's just a fat mystery on who they pay and how much they pay and why. Like, I'll throw a video out and it'll make a whole bunch of money, and it'll get half the views of another video where I make almost no money. Why?
Yeah,
they say, well, it's whoever watched it and how many minutes it was and all this stuff. And I'm like, I got 1 million views on this video and people loved it, and you paid me nothing. I got 100,000 views on this video and I made a whole bunch of money. I just got sick of it. I'm like, I don't chase YouTube revenue at all.
Mm-hmm. Like at this point, like it's not even sponsors pay more at this point. Because first off, I don't even make a lot from YouTube. It's just enough to sustain itself. It's not that I profit. It's just that it pays for itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just basically enough where I can categorize myself to do this as full time. Yeah. It's not like I'm over here making bank, because I'm not.
Yeah.
It's just enough to survive.
Oh, believe me, I know. It takes quite a bit of time, I think, to build something where the revenue stream is substantial. And at the end of the day, honestly, for the revenue stream to be high, you have to generate a lot of value for somebody. Like if I'm going to promote a company like Peaks, for example, I'm only going to get a big check from Peaks if I get a big check that I give to Peaks through promotion, right? And for me, I got to a point where I'm like, I only want to work with companies that are smaller and we can grow together. Because, I was working with Sitka for a long time. Well, they're just done. They've grown. They don't need me. Mm-hmm. And so and I'm also kind of like, it's a corporate culture and they want you to follow a certain set of guidelines, and I can't say this and don't rock the boat and don't show too much whatever. And I'm like, no. So I found that smaller companies that were up and coming, we started together on a lot of projects, and they were filling a niche that I wanted filled. Like, I don't like the current product on the market. And when I tell the company, hey, I don't like this, fix this, this is what I would do, and they go, whatever, we have a product, it works. I'm like, go to someone else and say, hey, I tried to tell them to do this. What if you do it? And they're like, we'll do that, because they're small. And then they do it. And I'm like, this is a way. And then they outcompete the other guys eventually. But it's nice to grow up with somebody who's also got a small business they're trying to grow up. It's a much better fit, and everybody is more freedom-oriented. I was with Mountain Ops when Casey and Jordan were selling supplements out of their basement. And back then, we could like be goofy, promote stuff, say what we wanted, hang out, and just there wasn't a lot of corporate culture to it. Then companies get big, investors buy them out, they're owned by, investment corporations, and, Vista comes along, like they bought Stone Glacier, and then things start to change. And it's not as fun, and they're starting to worry about liability. Mm-hmm. Like, Brian, don't say this controversial thing about woke culture or something. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work for me. And they're like, oh, well, maybe this doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't like that. I like the freedom to just be completely authentic.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. A lot of the businesses I work with, they're actually really small. Like, I'm actually one of the only quote unquote influencers that they work
with.
Yeah,
right.
That's like I like that. Though.
That's the better model.
Yep.
That's the better model. They value you, and you value them so much more. And I love to see a little mom and pop, because you're going to make some dude's dream come true where he can quit his job and just focus on whatever that thing is, that business he's trying to build. And so he's helping you and you're helping them. It's a good partnership. You know, when Ryan started Stealthy Nutrition, they had like 1 or 2 products, you know, and I'm like, yeah, you start selling supplements with Hillary, and I'll make the films. We'll work on this together. I don't want to do this, but it's a need that our audience has. You supply that need. We'll do the hunts and the films, and we like create a partnership that integrates. We're much more. We're free. We're free because we own everything. Like Stealthy owns his rifle covers, his glassing pads, and more stuff to come, and all the supplements. Well, he's creating great products that people want. We're creating shows that people value, and they support us by buying those products that they like that are valuable, and we get to keep doing the same stuff, and it's just it's a great way where all ships rise together and we all benefit. It's so much better than a sponsorship. Because the sponsor could come along tomorrow and say, hey, we had 100 people complain about this podcast you did, and they want your head on a platter. They all called, and we think we're going to have to, you're too controversial, we need to drop you. Overnight. And then I'm like, you're all a bunch of cowards, you know? You're all weak, and I don't want to be your partner anyway. And but that's not going to happen with Ryan. And when we own stuff together, it's like, who's going to cancel me? Mm-hmm. Who's going to pull a sponsorship? Like, I own it. And that is something where Hush is like, they own so much apparel and they've done so well. Like, they always geeked out on that. And they really did build such a solid income just through hats and shirts and stuff that they own. Like, there's no one's going to come along and say, oh, we're not going to pay you anymore. Like, you own it. Mm-hmm. And it makes you much more powerful. So you're using your skills, your talents, your film production, the audience that you have earned to sell your own stuff in a way. And that's by far the best model.
Exactly. That's where I'm headed with the hat.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if people want a Samong Outdoors hat, where do they go?
They still got to wait.
Dude, you're killing me.
That's what I'm saying. Like, my focus has been on these things so much. It's like, dude, like, I'm slowly working in the background trying to get that stuff. Because, like you said, full-time filmmaker, full-time producer, full-time business person, like, you can only be full-time so much, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's coming along, but it's a little bit of ways out.
So soon,
this year sometime.
Soon people can support you by buying hats and stuff.
Yes, I've got a lot of ways to go when it comes to business. That's the beauty of business. You could do it so many different ways.
Yes. Yeah, I think the most important thing, though, based on is you have to really value those people who are supporting you.
Yeah. Because
your whole lifeblood is really them and what their support of you. Without them, you don't really have a show. And they really do value it. I really strongly believe in the law of reciprocation. You do something awesome and show it to them, and they're thankful. They're like, dude, that was awesome. I love you. I'd love to support what you do because I get so much entertainment or so much inspiration or so much knowledge out of what you do, and it's just that circle. It's great.
Yeah.
Well. Where do people find Samong Outdoors on YouTube?
Yep, Samong Outdoors on YouTube.
How do you spell it?
SAMONG Outdoors.
Outdoors
yep.
On YouTube. And is there an Instagram?
Yeah, my Instagram is SY, that's my initials, _outside.
SY _ outside. And Nate?
Yeah, I kind of hunt together through his YouTube. But Instagram platform is just my full name, which is not that simple, but it's Nathaniel Cutshall.
Nathaniel Cutshall. And Nathaniel, what are your goals for 2023?
Just to grow with photography.
Yeah.
I kind of did the big transition from landscape type adventure, working with more tree hugging outdoor companies, which is how I came into it, to kind of transition over to more kind of the hunting and documenting of that, which is a totally different, style of photography. I've got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to learn that. And so kind of just focus on my craft this year. That's my goal.
All right, folks. Check it out. Go to Samong Outdoors. Check that out. And you have a website yet?
Not yet. It'll launch when those things go live. I know.
Slackers.
I'm a bad business person.
Well, we'll drop this podcast, and then we'll get together again when you guys have some hats and shirts or some film series you guys want to talk about or whatever. Hit me up, and maybe do a Zoom call if we're not like close, and we'll talk about it and get the word out with the audience there. And I'm excited to see what you produce. I really value it. I think you've done a great job. I love it. I love what you've done. So,
Thank
folks,
you. I
check it out.
That.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
Stay gritty, folks. Thanks for tuning in.